Truth, evidence, and the resurrection. So, first off, as you guys know, I do these devotions pretty often now, and I get a lot of comments, as you can imagine, especially when I go over topics like this about, and I apologize for the sniffles. I guess I got my allergies have kicked up somehow. But the common thing that I hear from a lot of skeptics are phrases like this one, like I don't deny the possibility of miracles, but I find them much less likely than natural explanations. And now, on the surface, that sounds reasonable, right? Until you realize that's actually not a scientific statement. That's a philosophical one. You're not evaluating the evidence. You're looking at them, you're filtering the evidence through a naturalistic lens. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is the most well attested event in ancient history if you're willing to judge it by the same standard we apply to any other historical claim. All right, so we're not asking for a separate category. The same, judge it by the same standard you would judge any other historical claim. The New Testament, it presents multiple independent eyewitness accounts. Paul, he wrote to the Corinthians and he told them very plainly, over 500 people saw the risen Christ. And he told them many of those witnesses were still alive. So that's not a myth. That's an invitation. He's saying, go ask them, right? That's not hearsay. That's a verifiable testimony. And that's a word you'll hear a lot as well from skeptics is it's hearsay, it's hearsay. Let's be very, very clear. Hearsay is when you cannot cross-examine the source. These accounts were circulating while hostile witnesses were still around. They were still alive. If the claims were false, Christianity would have been crushed under the weight of its own testimony. Testimonies like Paul, I just mentioned he gave, right? They're still alive. Go find them. See if I'm lying, right? So no one in the first century wrote a single document denying that Jesus was crucified or that the tomb was empty. All right. That in itself speaks volumes. Now, some are going to go on to say as well, I hear this all the time, is hallucinations, hallucinations. Friend, listen, hallucinations, they don't happen to groups. All right. Psychology knows this. You cannot have a share. I can't share a dream with you. You cannot share a dream with me. But Christ appeared to groups. He appeared to individuals, to friends, to skeptics, and even to his enemies. And every one of them changed. They didn't get rich. They got beaten. They didn't get power or influence. They were thrown out of the synagogues. They were exiled and they were executed, many in terrible, terrible ways, including with their families. You don't die for something and let your family die for something that you know is a lie. And then we'll hear, I get this as well a lot is you're just parroting what other people say. You're just parroting others. Of course I am. I'll be the first to admit I'm not the smartest guy in the smartest tool in the tool shed, right? Obviously, I have studied and studied people that are much smarter than I am. But just because somebody else said it before I did doesn't make the truth less true. The gospel is a historical message built on facts. If you dismiss it without examining it, you're not being rational. You're being willful. This isn't about can I believe it? It's more about will I believe it? And if you choose not to, then you're making a choice. You're not looking at the evidence. The problem is not the lack of evidence. The problem is the refusal to deal with the evidence that we have. If we held Caesar, if we held Alexander the Great to the same standard that skeptics apply to the New Testament, we'd have to erase them from history, but we don't. We accept far less documentation for them without protest. So I ask you, if the tomb wasn't empty, where's the body? If the disciples made it up, why die for it? If it was all just a lie, why did it turn Rome upside down? Jesus tells us in John 7, if anyone is willing to do God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God. The test of truth is not intellectual gymnastics. It really comes down to, is the heart willing to obey? And that's the question I leave with you today. Is your heart willing to obey? So thanks for watching. Love and appreciate you. God bless, and I'll see you back very soon.